Hey guys, Will Roundtree here, author of Credit is King, your favorite credit guide book. Hopefully you went out and purchased it. But more importantly, hopefully you guys subscribe to this channel. If not, make sure you subscribe right now, like it, share it, do all those fun things. But today I have the pleasure of sitting here with my partner, started out as one of my mentees, and we're going to talk about how to effectively evaluate a real estate deal. A lot of times we get people that reach out to us who are looking to get into real estate investing. And one of the things I've been able to share with people is that, you want to make sure that you get the information and get the knowledge, because real estate investing can be a scary thing to get into, 100%. Especially when you lack the information. So that's what Paul is going to break down here for you. But before I pass the baton to Paul, just want to share a few things about, this individual. We met probably about 3 or 4 years ago. My wife and, his girlfriend were, really good friends. They were like sisters. And one of the things that I'm a true believer in is that you build friendships organically. I never want to try to manufacture a relationship. And so Paul actually started out as a credit client of mine, came to me, was trying to get his credit restored. He was in position or going through the position of acquiring a 4-unit, apartment building out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so within that time span, not only did we help him achieve his goal, I would like to say he was fairly surprised at how fast it went.
100%. I was definitely surprised with the results.
Definitely. So, it was a very fast process. And then just from there, we just developed a relationship of brotherhood. But more importantly, he really sought out the information. And like you guys know, I'm definitely all for sharing this information, this game, this knowledge with you. And so he would just call out of curiosity and say, how do you do this? How do you do that? And he started building and working on his business credit. And then it was almost like a friendly competition of who can get approved for the most amount of money. And so from there, it just really developed. I saw he was taking interest not only just in business, but in entrepreneurship. So I took him under my wing, helped him not only establish himself as an entrepreneur, but more importantly, he was able to leave his full-time job just based off of the wealth principles that we're going to be showing you here in relations to real estate investing. Now, when I say he left the job, let me say, first of all, he retired from his job. He's, how old are you now, Paul?
34.
34 years old, retired. And at his job, he was making almost 6-figure income on his 9-to-5. So to be able to leave a full-time job that we call security, making almost 6 figures, and you walk away from that, obviously there's something here. So you guys definitely want to lock in, take this information. Remember, a short pencil is better than a long memory. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton, and you go ahead and rock out, all right?
Great introduction.
Thank you.
Hey, Paul Thornton here. Just wanted to go over real quick a breakdown of a deal that 2 of our coaching clients actually just closed on. So let's go ahead and just jump right into this. So the deal was a 2 single-family home deal. The purchase price was $55,000. The financing for the deal was a blanket loan. So basically what that means is we were able to close 2 properties under 1 loan. So we like blanket loans because it helps you maximize your opportunity, and close on multiple properties with less monies. So kind of going into the meat and the potatoes of the deal. So the closing costs, the appraisals for both properties were $1,000. I always recommend you definitely want to get appraisals, when you are going into to purchase real estate. Some of the guidelines, because this is a blanket loan and it is going through the bank, you have to get appraisals. But if you weren't, you weren't going through the banks, I've seen investors, buy a house without getting appraisals, and sometimes you'll overpay for that property. So definitely one thing, you always want to get an appraisal, when you're buying an investment property. The next thing included in the closing costs of this deal, 20% down. So anytime you're looking to, close on a conventional blanket loan, you're always going to need 20% down of what the total purchase price was. So since the total purchase price of this property was $55,000, so we got, about $10,000. And then the title fees is $1,000. So, and that varies. If you find a cheaper company, you always want to do your due diligence. You always want to shop around and look for multiple, have multiple options just in case, you can find something cheaper than this price here. So the total closing cost for this deal was $12,000. So now that we understand what the closing costs are, I'm going to kind of go more into the deal and kind of break down, the income and the expenses and how we came about to understand that this was a good deal for our coaching client. So the first property that was included in the blanket loan, the income on that property was $750, which is pretty good. So one thing, when we do our coaching, we always want to understand what our debts are. When you're getting into real estate, debts are the biggest thing that can make a deal go wrong. So you always want to understand what your expenses are, what your income is versus your expenses. So typical expenses on, any rental property or any investment property, you're always going to have your property management fee, which is the industry standard is always 10%. Your taxes, the taxes on this property was $65. How you can find out how much your taxes are on, if you're looking and, you're doing your due diligence on your properties and you want to know how much are the taxes, I don't even know where to find out and to look for that. You can always go to your city tax assessor and type in the address, and then you can go on there and find out how much those taxes are, those annual taxes. So you can break that down and add that into your expenses. Another expense that's extremely important, you always want to have insurance. So insurance, that was $54 a month. One thing with insurance, you always want to shop around as well. Anytime we're looking for insurance rates, we call, upwards to 10 to 20 different insurance companies, just so we can make sure that we're getting the best deal possible for our insurance. Another thing with insurance, you want to know what type of insurances are out there and what type of insurances are you, putting on that property. So you want to say, for example, you have what they call a 80% rebuild. So that means you would only pay 80% to rebuild the property. And if you had like a 5% deductible, that insurance would be cheaper as opposed to if you got a quote for 100% rebuild and maybe a 1% deductible. So anytime you call an insurance company, they're always going to give you the highest quote. So you kind of want to understand, what different insurances you have, just so you can kind of maximize your expenses here. So once we looked at all this, we looked at the income, we looked at the expenses, in order to get our cash flow, we just take the income minus all our expenses, right? So now the cash flow for this property per month is going to be $556. So we keep that in mind. We'll just keep $566 in mind. And then we're going to go on to the second property. So second property, kind of same thing, same breakdown. You're going to look at the income. Of course, this property rents for $725 a month. Expenses, the property mortgage is $75. Taxes is $65. Insurance is $54. And then this property actually has a water expense. So depending on the property, sometimes you will have water expenses. Sometimes the tenant will pay. It just really all depends on how your lease is written up for that tenant. But in this case, this particular property had water expenses. So after all the expenses, minus the income, minus the expenses, this particular property is cash flowing $480. So now that we understand what our expenses are and what our income is for both particular properties, this is kind of when we get into the meat and potatoes to kind of understand what our returns are going to be. So this is personally how I break down my numbers. So the gross cash flow on a monthly basis is going to be $1,036. That's the $480 plus the cash flow from the first property. So now once I know what my gross cash flow is, now we have to start deducting our expenses, right? So what's an expense that we would have? Because this is a blanket loan, there is going to be a mortgage attached to it. So, we have to take that into consideration. So the mortgage for this particular property is going to be $350 a month. And then, so also, we have a lot of clients that come in and they're, they're coming through easy funding or whatever funding process they're coming into. If they're leveraging their credit, then they're going to have some sort of credit card debt that's attached to this deal. Maybe they might have took off the fees to get the whole deal done. So we would take the credit card debt for this deal is $120. And that's for all the closing costs. So this particular client pulled all the money off of his credit card to pay off his closing costs. So essentially he's out of his pocket $0. He's just leveraging all bank money. So now once we understand, so we take the gross cash flow, which was 1036 minus the mortgage to the bank, minus the credit card debt. Oh yeah, so how to figure out the credit card debt? You always want to call your credit card company. A lot of times it's either going to be about 1 to 2%, whatever the balance is of that credit card. But it always makes sense. I tell all my clients, if you're going to leverage your debt, understand how much you're going to pay. If this was $600, then this deal probably wouldn't make sense. So you definitely always want to keep in mind what your credit card debt is going to be. So after all of our expenses, the monthly net for both properties after all expenses is going to be about $566 a month. So now we'll go. So the annual net income, how we figure that out is we'll take the 566, we times that by 12, and then that's going to give us $6,792 a month, right? So then that helps us understand what our return on investment is for this property. So, and the formula for a return on investment is the annual net income divided by your all-in cost, your purchase price, whatever you want to call it. So annual net income divided by all-in cost. So if we divide 6,792, because that's our annual net income, $566 times 12 gives us our annual net income, and our all-in cost was only $12,000. So this is where our all-in cost came from, our closing costs. That was the 20%, the title fee, the closing fees, all that good stuff. So after we do that, if we divide that, that's a 56.6% return that this coaching client is getting on those two properties. So hope you understood that. Hope that was some very valuable information. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Thank you.